Good morning, everyone, and fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. I am trying to get some music running here. Looks like I can. Trying to make all of the Tamerlan folders all be unified. It's kind of weird. I'm getting there. And it's a thing. It is always something over here. But what I'm noticing is I've got 400 different copies of these things, and it's like I just don't even know. I don't even know. All right. So put that there too. I think. I don't know. All right. And some of these just don't even make sense. So I'm just like, I don't even know why this all happened or why it went this way. But it did. And that's okay. So, hey Peugeot, how you doing? You've discovered we have the other time that we're on now. It's good to see you. I have. Good heavens. Is this the same folder? This is the same folder. That's why it matches. Okay, that should be deleted. Oh, man. There we go. There. Yet another set of copies of this. That's empty too. All these folders are somewhat empty or empty. That's empty as well. Very well. All right. So I've is request opened. Okay, if I do one more thing for you, is that okay? So if I do this though, but I've got to get back to my work at some point here. Do you want Lavin from Vin's Paws wearing a VR hat, a VR set? Is that what you're looking for? You're not lost. You're right there. Weird. You're still not lost. Okay. Then I will do that in 1 minute. Let me finish sorting these last folders because there's a lot of folders. And then once we're done, I will do that for you, okay? Then make sure that these are all the same. Then delete this and all of these in here. Hopefully. Okay. All of those can be destroyed now. I can delete this. And then I can put this over here. And put this. Right, where'd I put? There we go. Put this and this in here. They look the same. Skip. All right. There we go. Spinning up, drawing, and I'll switch. Hey Maria, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I'm about to start a drawing for Peugeot. Oh, I should probably switch over to the camera so you can see what I'm doing instead of looking at me. All right. So we're doing a fan art piece for a request here. And I will be working on a piece by an artist named Vince Paz. And so what we're going to do, first we'll save the image so that I can find it again. I am an artist, yes. Although, and this is kind of, don't usually do, hang on real quick, I've got to fix my microphone. Because my microphone is stuck to the side of my face. I don't want the side of my face. There we go. That's actually probably a better move all the way around, because now that light is out of the way. You're a digital artist too. Yay! That is very good. Oh, that's good. We're out of Denver, Colorado. And, oh, come on. Work with me here. He's not going to work with me. That's fine. So I'm broadcasting out of Denver, which is in the middle of the United States, in the state of Colorado. Where are you from? You're out in Cali. Q. I have learned in my day that I don't make any assumptions that anybody's from America, especially Twitch. There's a lot of people from all over the world here, which is great. And we're just doing this here. Right? We get to meet all kinds of cool people. It's awesome. So we're doing, by request, this character wearing a VR helmet or VR whatever. Oh, I've got lots of logos. So we've got a couple of things. I have my own personal logo, and then the duck pond, the Quack, has its own logos. And it's generally done by a committee of us. So, which is, there's no committee here today because our committee is, for some reason, scattered to the four winds this week. So, I don't know what's going on. Quack is a collective of artists from all over, mostly from Denver, but it's only a Denver group because that's where we started. We used to meet in real life, and then one of our group moved to South Dakota and then to Tennessee, and now lives in Tennessee. And then, another of our group has moved to Houston, and that kind of thing. So it became much more convenient to just be online. And so we meet online regularly, and this is part of an ADD exercise for those in our group that have attention deficit, and it's called body doubling. And body doubling is where ADDers need to sit next to somebody else who's doing work, and then they just suddenly need to do work. So it doesn't require, you don't have to, get mad at them or argue with them or anything like that. They'll just do the work. So that's what we do. And that's what this whole thing is an exercise of. Normally, I would be working on my comic right now, but my comic's out at the readers right now, and my readers caught COVID, so hopefully not from the comic. Mm-mm. Why would you do that? Why would you choose that pen? Hey, cat. Hey, Jackson. I'll get used to it. It takes me some time. So far, so good. I'm doing that request for Peugeot, and then I'm probably going to call it quits on Vince Paz. I'm not a fan of this I'm not a fan of this comic. Not that I think the comic's bad or anything, but I've just never read it. And so I feel like it's weird to do fan art of it if I don't know anything about it. And B, really, I should be working on my own stuff. Would you like me to stop until then? I mean, I hate to say this, but that's not that hard of a request. Will do. I don't mind tall. Mm-hmm. I follow that. I could see that too. I mean, think about the number of people on my Facebook who are you know, from the South, you know, known me since I was a small child, and yada yada yada. Where I would be in their shoes, I don't think I'd like it as much. All right. Ish. That's all right. You be ishy. You be ishy washy. It'll be fine. No. I mean, yes. Today I've got to go do a shoot. So I've got to get. In fact, it reminds me that after I'm done with this, I got to go make sure that my batteries are all charging and stuff like that. And then um, tonight or tomorrow I work and I'm teaching. Tomorrow and Friday I'm teaching, and then Sunday I'm teaching. So like it's this weird staccato thing. I don't know. Anyway. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Should be fine. How about yourself? Anything awesome happening in your world? I don't mind teaching. Gotcha. Yeah, I think I got a little bit of that kind of going on in my world today too. I am. Hi there, Eleonora. Eleonora. I'm drawing Vin's Paws characters, apparently, by request. I'm not 100% sure what the comic is, but it's a request. And so that's what I've been kind of doing over here is this. Somebody has requested Vin's Paws characters. Vince Paws character wearing an Oculus. So that's what I'm doing. It's just weird, which is cool. I like challenges every so often. Although this is the last one I'm going to do because once I'm done with this, first of all, I don't read this comic, so I'm kind of, hey, Hone. I'm kind of, since I don't read the comic, I feel kind of weird doing fan art of it. It seems kind of strange, but that's all right. I think that pretty much is that. I need to put a tail in, though. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. How you doing, Hone? What's the haps? Suffering. Oh, hey, real quickly, while I have you on here, can you check to see if this time zone's correct with you? Because I feel like it's off by 1 hour, and I think that's because of daylight savings, and I'm not sure. You've been doing voice recordings? Good job. Okay. This is the when do we broadcast? Because everybody keeps asking, and they're all in different places in the world. And so I figured I'd just make a map that was the world. Just say, find yourself on here. No, Thanks, Eleonora. That's somebody else's character. I'm actually a manga style character. And so, usually, or character artist, I'm a manga style artist. I have a folder called requests. Where's that folder? There it is. Yeah, that's what I've figured. So it's up at the top because this is the day show for me. So it should be midnight or 2 a.m. Oh, I get it. That makes sense. All right. Like I did with the other one. Purple, so green is its offset. Maybe a little darker. There we go. 1041. It's 941. So we're almost set up the same way. It's 941, which means that you are in. Well, yeah, but you're in. Well, see, Oceania gets all screwed up. Like, you look here in Asia, and it's like all messed up. Some of it's yellow, some of it's in this pink. Oh, yeah. That's right. So we're off by 2 from there. So Florida would be 2 over from us. It's 9 a.m. now, which is 10 a.m. in Central, which would be Texas, and 11 a.m. Right. That makes sense. Your buddy from Florida. Absolutely. I'm just finishing this up for the guy who requested it. And then I'll show you some of my work. Otherwise, it's going to be huge. All right. Yeah, it should be 11:43 a.m. there. Righty. Now we're going to upload this to the duck pond. Give me just a second, Eleonora. I'm going to try to upload this to the duck pond here. And I'm going to upload a file from my artist directory, from the requests directory. Here, request complete, and done. There we go. All right. You show you've got that one there. I'll now come back here. We'll close this because it's not necessarily a thing I like to do. We'll open out of here. I'll show you some of the stuff that I do. My normal mode is a sort of a space manga style. So, for example, that's my main character. Right? So he got a job that gets him up at 4 a.m. He has to be at a job at 4 in the morning. So, since he has to get up at 4 in the morning, he can't really stay up, or he can't stay up until midnight. And he's working right now. So, we're going to have to decide whether we're moving the time or doing it at a different time or something like that. So, we're not sure. So, I'm scared to ask about second breakfast. Like, I don't know, are you still with second breakfast or still hang out with her? Because I'm curious, because she's nice, she's cool. I'm loath to ask that question though, because I'm worried that the answer might be bad, or that I might bring up bad things. I don't want to bring up bad stuff if it's, bad or whatever. No, oh, her? That doesn't sound good. Thank you. She is my main character from my comic, which is... Where is the picture for it? I have to go through all of this stuff to find these things. The comic that I'm writing is called Bellatrix Rising, and if I can find a link to it, I will send a link to you. And hang on real quick. There we go. I'll put the link to the comic in To Marry Her. She's just lovely. That's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, she has. She would be a difficult person to marry. Not impossible, just difficult. Here you go. Here's the comic link. So, all right, we were trying to find something. Oh, that's the cover picture I was looking for. Right here. Right here. So, yep, there we go. There's a lot of people who want to marry her. She once was married. She isn't anymore. She had a daughter. That's not her daughter. That's a different character. That's part of the reason why she is who she is. So, yeah. And welcome as well, Estrella. Hey, Pepper, forever. How are you doing? So far, I've got issue 1 is out. I have a side story that's out, and I have a world building document that's out, and they're at Global Comics. Issue 2 and 3 are right now at my editors, getting looked over and edited so I can draw it and finish it up. But they are they both got COVID, so now they have to get over getting COVID. So they've been sick for a while, and now they're getting better and stuff. So, do I play any game? I play boring games like Sims. I love The Sims and Sim City. But I'm not this isn't a gaming channel, if that's what you're asking. This channel is an art channel, so COVID just sucks. I agree. COVID's just nasty. Who wants to mess with COVID? Ugh. So, Sims? Yeah, I'm addicted to Sims. I'm also addicted to City Skylines. City Skylines is similar to Sim City, but better. I like it a whole lot better. So I play a lot of City Skylines. I do play No Man's Sky, which is one of my favorites, and Kerbal. I am so addicted to Kerbal Space Program, I swear. But those are my 4 main games that I play. Oh, noes. Well, hello, Second Breakfast. It's good to see you. Or good to talk to you. Yep. So, Eleanor, originally when I made my original pages, they were designed for Webtoon. And there is a Webtoon account for my comic that's open, but I haven't done the comics in Webtoon format yet. So I have been kind of trying to figure out a faster way to make my comics Webtoon compliant, because Webtoon has a different set of height and width requirements for pages. And so at one point, my master pages that I made for comics, right? The master pages that I used were Webtoon compliant. Like, these have this extra space down here for Webtoons. That's this point down here. This is April 22. But it says this document is for Webtoons reduced by 69125 for a final size of 800 by 1280. And that's the thing, is that the pages need to be 1200 or 800 by 1280. And the final page sizes are different than manga. And so I do my comics as if they ultimately will end up being an actual tankobon, right? Okay, good luck there, honey. Do I know Roblox the game? My kid plays Roblox. So, still kind of working on Eleonora's comment that this is a tankobon, a Japanese tankobon. And so ultimately, my comic is designed to fit in this page set. So it's the same size. And that's the goal. But yeah, so I have multiple things for Webtoons. And I think probably what I will do is, for Webtoons, make it so that I've got a special extra panel or two that sits between these pages. But I'm not sure. My newer ones look a little different now. Oh, well, thank you. I've been doing it for a very long time. I started when I was a teenager. And so I've been doing this for a long time. And so, for example, just so everybody feels better, let's see here. This is what I was drawing in 1988. This is what my artwork looked like in the 80s, in 1988 or 89. And then I got better as time went on. There's the wrong folder for that. I actually did manage. I would have some pictures that were really good. Like this one was really good. And then I didn't draw like this for a long time. It was just like, I did one really good picture and then just didn't do another one like this. It took years. This was 1991. And as time went on, I got better at stuff. And I figured out all of the different problems that I had made and all the different kinds of errors that I had done, and got better and better. And now I'm at this. So that's where we are. That's how it got here. Isn't that amazing? So, do you guys draw? Pepper, do you draw? Guess your name? I just start with Aaron because that has 2 A's. Alphabetically, that'd be first. Oh, good. I'm glad you like drawing. Daz Studio has just like spammed me this morning. I don't know what's going on. Okay, you're a girl. Then I'm trying to think of Abby would probably be the first alphabetical. Oh, Amber. Amber. Okay. Amber is cool. I like the color that's usually associated with amber. It's a very rich yellow. Like, it's not kind of, yellow can get kind of weird, but amber is such a rich golden yellow. So I like that color a lot. It's kind of an orange yellow. Very, very pretty. And you usually can find like dinosaur DNA inside amber, which is really cool. Oh. Right? Amber is that's a rich color. There are certain colors that feel kind of flat, but amber has such richness to it. Your dog Pepper died? I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that. But I could give you lessons, Eleanor. Eleonora. What are you mad about? What are you mad about? Oh, I see what you're mad about. Can you guys draw a box? Because we can do almost anything if you can draw a box. Oh, hey, there's a Webtoon reading direction too. Like controls in here for Webtoons. Here, I'll show you. Let's rotate the canvas 90 degrees and get in here. You have 2 more dogs. Oh, that's good. All right, Eleanor. So the first thing I do is I use a technique called blue lining, which comes from old comic books, the way old comic books used to be made. Right? So you take a blue pen like this, and back in the day, these blue the blue pencils wouldn't photocopy, so you could make your entire artwork with the blue, and it wouldn't be copied. You couldn't copy it on a photocopier. We still use blue line just simply because it's tradition now, because of course it doesn't matter. But if you can draw a box, then we can work on how to make the box realistic, right? Because then we take the box and we make the back part of the box farther away, and things that are farther away are smaller, right? And then you just connect the lines, right? Now you have a box. You're a sub. I don't know what subs mean, but okay. And sometimes when you do this, you gotta like make it make sense. Otherwise, it just starts to be weird. So then we can get to the point where we make a box and we make the back part of the box without having to put the inside part in, right? And then you can. Does that mean sub that like you subscribed? Because if so, thank you. Right? We don't have to draw the insides of the box. That's kind of confusing, so we take that away. If you can do this, everything is a box or a circle, right? So if you draw a circle, it can become a sphere, but the only way you do that is by showing it. So we do a shadow, right? Maybe we even draw the shadow on the ground, right? And that shows that it's a sphere. And if you can do a box and a circle, and you can make them look round, then we can draw anything. Because realistically, everything is either a box or a circle. For the most part. There are some exceptions. Because even a person is a series of boxes, like this, with circles. And then lines. Woo, we're way out there somewhere. I don't know where you are. Right? That's all a person is. It's just a bunch of boxes and circles. And if you can do this with it, then you can also bring the body into a three-dimensional space. This all takes practice. None of it's easy. Right? And once you have, even this can be a box, right? And this becomes your guide, right? I'll change my color a little bit so you can see that I'm doing something different. We come in here and just kind of fill in the blanks. Anatomy issues. It's always an anatomy issue, right? Right? Out of a box. We know that across here will be all these points, which you want to make sure we remember. And then even here, we'll do the face with just using guidelines like that. And now we've got pretty much a full character already forming here. But it's still only boxes and circles. In the end, it's not complicated. And once you've done all this, you can do, checks on things like usually women's hips are wider than men's, so you can bring that out here. Thing that a lot of people make a mistake on is that it's not the hip itself, it's not the hip bone that causes the part of the body to move out. It's the musculature around the femur that changes through here. So you have to know some of your anatomy, but that's no big deal. So what happens is that the wide part is actually at the upper thigh and not at the hip itself. You're welcome. This technique was invented by a guy named Bridgman in the 1800s, and it's called Bridgman's movable masses. And what he believed was, and I kind of go with it, he believed that you could reduce the human body into 3 main movable masses, right? Which represents the head, the chest, and the hips. And as long as you took these 3 and kept them connected, you could put them in any combination you wanted, and they would still work. Right? And as long as you were keeping them connected, you could move them around all you wanted. And this would then give you the ability to do, interesting poses, like somebody sitting on a beach reading a book, right? Because now you just add all the pieces together, and you've got the book here, and the hand, and the other hand, one foot here's there, one's foot's there. You get the idea. And now they're on the beach. Now you've got somebody on the beach reading a book. And that's all you had to do, was start with those 3 movable masses, and then you can do anything you want. You can turn them around, you can rotate them. As long as you can draw a square and make it look 3D like that, then you can do anything. And then when you get to the point where you have to flesh it out, you just draw an egg inside here, because that's pretty much what a human's head is. It's like this egg, right? And then we draw a line right through the center, and that's the eyebrows, and then straight down the middle to indicate where you're going to line everything up along on there. And then one eye is here, one eye is here, the mouth is there, the nose is there. You get the idea. And proof you're done. It takes no time whatsoever. Now, if you do manga style, this gets a little bit weirder, because in the manga style, the head is shorter to the bottom jaw, so you end up with a head that, instead of being straight across the middle, this becomes where the eyes usually are, is right at that point, and then it comes down like this, and then you do that, and you do that. And it's only because all manga has enlarged eyes. It's one of the things that is sort of a hallmark of manga. But because of that, they don't make the eyes go down very much. Some do, but the majority of what I've seen is the eyes are centered. So the larger the eyes are, the more they have to just give room on the face for it. So there you go. Drawing 101. I can make anybody draw. Drawing is a skill, and it's not a talent. The talent is telling a story with your drawing. That's a talent. Which is also a skill, but some people are really good at it from birth. Dang it. All right. Morning, Bean Ricky. I feel like I should recognize that name. Hello, some user. Good morning. Oh, I recognize that name. I recognize that other name. How you doing this morning? Nope. See you next stream, Eleonora. And you're welcome. Ooh. Oh, we broke Cat's first rule. Oh no. That's all right. This is just throwing stuff together. Boy, we're having problems today. Definitely having problems. There we go. And voila, we've got the start of a body and a thing. I know. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, so I'm still working on that. I just keep getting sidetracked, and it's like the opposite of a what an ADD stream should be working on it. So yeah, cat. I did that whole. I just added a new layer, and it wasn't vector; it was raster. So I was like trying to use the vector line zatting tool. All right. Okay, so I was working on the economics of this and trying to make an operable meritocracy. That's what I'm after. So, the first thing is in the Unity, you always have housing, you always have food, and you always have healthcare. You're guaranteed those. Those will always exist. So even if you don't do anything, the meritocracy, it works that way. Because we assume that there will be days when you just can't, right? Months, years, stuff like that. So that said, that when you do work, depending on your level of knowledge in there, so like from white to black, these are our various ranks. They're ranked like martial arts because that was something I think people would take on, especially since martial arts is a meritocracy. So It makes some sense. And you are awarded a mythical coin that doesn't actually exist called a kina. The kina is just so that you can interface with the economy designed to go between two things, because the thing that's valued in in the Unity is a work hour, right? So 1 hour is worth of work. That's what's really valued. Um, and so that being the way it goes, if you are running on a, you know what? I just realized. I'll be right back. Hang on. Right, coming back. Hang on. All right. Okay. So yeah, if you think about it, if you did only, um, if you did nothing all year long and you were a novice, so you were a white belt essentially at all jobs, and you were only working in a white belt level job, so something simple, that's not very, uh, very, common or whatever, or not very complicated, you'd make 400 kina. You'd be worth 400 kina every year. That would then say that the base person is about 400 kina. So the maximum, though, would be if you were working as a black belt, then every hour in the year would be valued at 1 kina per hour. So you'd make 2,000 kina every year. That then would send that through to the economy. So how much does each worker in the economy make? And some people make more and some people make less. And I don't think the average would really end up being right about at like, what is it, 1,200, which is somewhere between 400 and 2,000. So kind of thinking that through. But then you get different things like, if you're on a spaceship, a combat ship, like we are when we're dealing with the Kittiwake, you get a hazard adjustment because you're in the military. So that's 1 kina extra to 100 kina extra, depending on how hazardous it is. Um, if you create something that's useful to the economy, like a story or writing, art, replimat patterns, building designs, things like that, as every time it's used, you'll get a creation stipend, or you'll get, essentially royalties. So every time somebody uses one of your creations, you get a small amount of that royalty, and it's per 1,000 units, or per thousand, or per thousandth of the population. So that way, it's not fixed to a number of the population; it's fixed to 1,000th of the population. So if your thing is used by 1,000th of the population over the last year, you get an extra bonus for it. So then your status is decided by your net worth score, which is the total you make per year, regardless of how much you spent. That score stays the same and doesn't change. And my buddy James and I were thinking about, what do you do about possessions and land ownership? And land ownership is just essentially rental anyway. you're only renting it from the government or the whatever. And I know that that makes a whole lot of people very angry, but there's, if you don't, then you have the other problem, which is this very critical piece of land belongs to Bob Smith, and then Bob Smith dies without leaving it to anybody. So then the land can't ever be turned over. We can never do anything with it. So it becomes a problem. So instead, what you do is your status allows you to take larger and larger parcels for buildings or buy buildings or whatever, but you still surrender them at the end of your life cycle. And the reason for that is that means that you can't pass down wealth in the society. Everybody is then encouraged to create their own wealth. So that's the idea. It's like a kind of weird communism, but it's democratic. So that's where we were, was here. We also designed kind of an interesting thing about the replimats, because part of the reason that this exists, this society exists, is because of replicators, right? As soon as you have replicators, there's no need for anything. You can make all the food you want. Yeah, it's like a semi-communism. You have all the food you want because it's a post-scarcity society. So you don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about shelter. You don't have to worry about clothing because clothes can be made. And so we were trying to kind of figure out a way to make it sort of have some kind of natural hit against it. So we decided that the replimats, the more complex the item, the more likely it is to break down over time. So if you're making a block of steel, the replimats can make it, and that steel will be steel for thousands of years. But if you're trying to make the replimats make, like, let's say, a cell phone, the cell phone's super complex with little circuits and little IC chips and all this stuff. As it's replicating it, it's just the atoms that it's putting together in there, they after a while they break down, and after a while it's like maybe 5 or 6 hours. So it's super complicated. You can use it for about 5 or 6 hours and then it just falls apart. It stops working. And that's the nature of replimats. The more complex the design, the more you need to have it manufactured. And so for those kind of things, the more complicated things, you've got places that build things. So you'll have a company that builds cell phones. That's what they do. They just build cell phones and stuff. And so then you have a company. And part of this, of course, is that it's funny because my buddy was saying, well, how are you going to keep people from, what incentive are you going to keep people to keep doing the things that they're doing? If there's no benefit for doing work or fear of having your livelihood taken away. He said, most people just sit around and watch TV. And I said, I'm actually living proof that that's not true. Nobody's paying me. I mean, I get people pay me for my comics, but if you were to look at the total that I have made on these comics, it's not enough to pay for food and shelter. And it probably never will be. So I'm clearly not falling under that. And I think what really happens is, he's like, well, yes, but that's something you love. And I'm like, yes, that's the point, right? Franchisism. How do you get people to buy in, right? It changes the thought process of how you do work. It changes the thought process of how you manage a business. In today's world, the way we manage a business is we say, hey, do what I tell you to do, and I will give you this stuff that will allow you to live. But that makes work something you do just to get by instead of something you buy into because you actually like it. If I had a company and it was on me to convince you that this is a good thing and you'll love working with me on it, then you and I can sit there together and make all of these we want. And if I'm open about how well we do or how badly we do or whatever, then you know where we are. And so it gives a completely different feel. Because his argument was that Soviet Russia was communist and nobody was happy. And that's because they didn't franchise their people. So nobody's franchised, right? There are two things that are happening in the unity. One, if you don't want to work at all, you don't have to. Two, if you want workers, the managers are now going to have to go sell their company to people. Hey, some user, I've got this awesome, beautiful company. You really want to work for me? And that makes a difference in the way we think. It's a different concept. It's not the same as, having to, saying, because the biggest problem I have with capitalism as it stands is that with capitalism, you are required to do the thing because otherwise we take away your food. So it's literally at threat of death. Everything's at threat of death, right? You have to work or else you die. You starve to death, homeless on the streets. It's like, right? And that's not to say that that's necessarily wrong, or that it's not appropriate or whatever. But yeah, my biggest thought was that if you could get away the threat of death part, you end up with people being more creative. You end up with people doing more things. And if you can't get it done, you build a robot to do it too. That's also a possibility. And the robots are no longer a threat. Right now, robots are a threat. So that's my thought. The good news is this is a completely fictional universe. So in my completely fictional universe, people act completely fictionally. Right? You starve to death. Not to say that that's necessarily wrong. Well, but it's one of those things. So reading that book, Humankind, that I've been talking about by Richard Bregman, has changed the way I see things quite significantly. If you assume the best of people, it changes how you view the world. If we assume the worst of people, then it's pretty much the way the status quo is. If I don't threaten you with your life, then you won't do any work at all. You'll just sit at home and watch TV. But the truth is, everybody I know who's ever had the ability to sit at home and watch TV doesn't. The super rich people do not sit at home and watch TV. That's not what they do. Elon Musk could sit at home and watch TV for the rest of his life, but he doesn't. Bill Gates doesn't. Bill Gates started an entire foundation to help people and stuff like that. That's what he does, right? He spends his days making sure that people are where they're supposed to be, And that's the thing. It's kind of interesting because the more I think about this, the more I'm like, it assumes that people will not work if they're free to do whatever they want to do. And for a few years here, I've been kind of free to do whatever I want to do. And the truth is, no, I'm not cleaning the sewers. I'm having a hard time going out and mowing my lawn, but for the most part, I'm not working. I've been putting in a lot of work on my comic, which doesn't pay very well. So, I think that's the thing. It's like it makes sense if you think you can't control people. Like, I think part of the problem is that people feel like they need to find people and force them to work on these jobs instead of having to come up to them and say, hey, the sewer is clogged. Will you help me clean the sewers? Because we've both got to clean these sewers. And, it's clogged, and that's horrible. You know, and then I could get you to do all kinds of things if I asked nicely. I keep getting my friends over here to help me clean my house with me. And they do. Not because they feel like they're getting paid, they aren't. So I feel like that's a different mentality. It's a mentality you have on people. And I think what it means is that you need to have small communities inside the larger community, which I think a space opera would afford, right? Which actually makes me think of something else, because maybe what needs to happen is there needs to be sort of a natural limit on the top side of communities. Right. And since that would be the fact here in the Unity, it doesn't matter what its value is to something else. It's assumed all things are valuable. Which then again, I was saying that, and my friend was saying, well, yeah, but then you're going to decide that underwater basket weaving is valuable, and therefore you should be paid for it. And I mean, in this instance, you get the creation bonus for it, but you still can work on underwater basket weaving. And the way that it's set up, you have to test for each level, right? An awful lot of you guys. You have to test for each level. So, like, you go from white to yellow. If you are an underwater basket weaver, you're going to have to find somebody who's a higher ranking underwater basket weaver to give you the test at yellow. Otherwise, you can't test. It's like with me and martial arts, I wonder if there should be like a teacher bonus too. Hmm. Anyway, me with martial arts is the same thing. My martial art is an art called Kyudo, which is an archery. And the problem with it, of course, is that the only people who can test me are in South Carolina, on the other side of the United States. So if I want to rank up to the next belt, I have to drive all the way to the other side of the United States and find a place to stay and da 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 da. Whereas in Japan, I could just go to the capital and test and stuff. So it depends on whether you can be finding a spot to live in that time. There is a certain amount of loyalty towards capitalism in America. And so if you are speaking against capitalism, there are certain groups of people who think that that's not patriotic. And I'm like, no. I mean, we're not in a post scarcity society here. This is not a post scarcity society. And frankly, when you have food as something that is part of the society, then it gets caught up in the capitalism and the way capitalism works. So it is what it is. And I mean, I'm thinking about this not from the point of view of a nation state, but from the point of view of a people. What would be the best way to value you and me? And like a kind of distorted communism might not be a bad place to start. Everybody who always says communism doesn't work, well, look at Russia, look at Cuba, look at China. And the whole thing is that you can say that, but on the same token, that's probably because of the system size. That might be more of an aspect of the size of the system. I don't know. Right. Well, we had an entire thing here with a senator named McCarthy who did the same thing during the 50s and blackballed a whole bunch of people and scared. It was called the Red Scare because we were suddenly afraid of the Russians, and it was difficult. But that's the thing, right? In like, if you are, that's just turning, it's one of those things. You can say communism is bad, but the aspects of communism that we actually were not liking had nothing to do with communism. It had everything to do with the way the nations were behaving. The problems with communism were disenfranchisism, right? Because the people who were doing the work in the communism didn't feel like they owned it, which is part of the reason why they were trying to be socialist. Because the idea was that if you're socialist, then you're at least trying or attempting to enfranchise your people. That's the important part. So you have to get them to buy in. And so my economic system is a meritocracy, which is really different in that it does franchise you because you are encouraged to do better for society by getting more things out of society, right? So that's the thought process here. I don't know. I'm kind of pondering it. Move this up here. Move this up here. That's my thought process anyway. Right? Well, and that's the thing. Like Pol Pot and all of those guys, they weren't helping any. You know what I mean? Like, but that wasn't necessarily the problem with communism. That was a problem with a dictatorship. The top part of it was a dictatorship. And the difference here is you can get buy-in from people if you so that's what happens. Here's the deal. You try to change your country, right? Your entire country needs to be changed. You need to come up with a new way of doing things. Well, what do you do with those 100,000 people who do not want to change over? What do you do with them, right? And the answer, of course, is that you try to enfranchise them, or you can kill them. That's obviously a choice you can make, but it's not necessarily a good choice. There you go. A bit of interesting stuff going on there. So, and that's the thing, right? Is you kind of need to figure out whether you're encouraging them or discouraging them or whatever to join. So, anyway, these are the thoughts that go through my brain. Right? Choices versus good choices. Like, you can choose to run your country by saying, look, guys, we're going to franchise all of you people so that you all feel like you're part of this culture. And that's the thing. And I think what would end up happening is you'd end up with zones that are one type of people. You'd end up with an artistic zone. So, when somebody comes up to you and says, I'm from Beeplebop, you'll be like, oh, Beeplebop. That's, a super creative thing. Yeah, absolutely. It's just far easier to scare people into doing the things. Well, okay, that's great. But, how does that franchise them? It doesn't. It doesn't franchise them at all. So that's exactly right. You can scare them into it, but how does that really work for you? So that's a thing. And in this hopeful world that I have created, I'm hoping what we actually have is everybody was franchised in their own way, and they were allowed to leave if they didn't want to franchise, and that's okay. So anyway, that's a thought process I've been having for a while now. These are all things that I think about. Oh, hey, some user, we've got this new right? Exactly. Well, and that's what I was thinking too, was that you'd end up kind of gravitating towards a world that matches what you do. And then that culture then just enriches the environment. Real quickly, though, I'm going to bring up, I've got this new thing where I'm showing the time slots of everybody. So if you would take a look and make sure that that makes logical sense to you. That would be cool. And see if it shows roughly accurately. I think it might be off right now by an hour because of daylight savings time. Not sure. Oh, so the top row is the morning show, this show, and the bottom row should be the evening show because we do twice a day. So just checking to see if your time zone sounds right on here. Okay, 1844. That helps. So you should be... I think that's correct. So you should be in purple. Are you in purple? Or the light purple? No, you're in the dark purple, right? Kind of this dark purple here. You're right here. Okay, well, maybe it's off by 1 hour, which should be correct as well, because If it's off by 1 hour, we're at daylight savings time, so it's close, but it's always going to be slightly different because of daylight savings time. I would think, anyway. All right. That's totally fine. Do you know daylight savings time came around because of like shopping, and that's why it's taking so long for us to get rid of it? Hey, sorbet shark cookie. Yeah, I mean, like, that's part of it, was to make it so that it was light into the winter hours more. And so that's part of the reason why we're having a hard time getting rid of it. But it's also interesting how many people talk back and forth to sort of cover it up. I mean, I've heard it was farmers that wanted it, and the farmers never wanted it. They actually hate it. It screws up their schedules. It was Ben Franklin that came up with it. Ben Franklin invented an idea behind it, but he didn't actually want it. He just thought it was an interesting idea, that it was World War I saving light and everything like that. That's true, but then it went away, but came back in the 50s. So it was a completely different thing at that point. So, yeah. That's a thing. People are people. So, neither here nor there, I guess. I just joined. What happened? Hi, Sorbet. We're talking about governmental stuff. Strangely enough, we've been off on a tangent. I draw a comic called Bellatrix Rising, and it's this is the artwork that typically you would see in Bellatrix Rising. However, I am waiting for issue 2 and 3 to be edited right now. And so those issues aren't available for me to work on. So I can't actually work on my comic right now because my editors got COVID. And so they are sick at the moment. And so they're not checking over my comic. So I've been going through and doing a world building exercise called Hermetics. And Hermetics, it asks you all these questions about your world. Yep. And so because of that, we've gotten deep into the economy of my primary culture in my comic book, because we're just kind of messing around and trying to figure out something to do while we wait for my editors to edit my book. And so I am kind of idling here on this, but we've been kind of talking about, okay, well, what if you were to make a perfect economy? What would be the perfect type of economy? A utopia, right? I know that people say that utopias are impossible, and maybe they are, but this is fiction, so I can write it if I want, sort of thing. So I've been kind of playing the game of what do we do with a utopia? How do we make it work? And one of the things we've come up with is that it's sort of a pseudo-communism almost, is like the ideal situation. Yes and no. It's really just so that I now know what people get paid and how they get paid and what their value is. Because once we think through this, people will, I mean, especially once we deal with Alex as she starts to become part of the society, they're going to have to put her into the meritocracy somewhere along the line, you know. Have to come up with it somewhere. So that's the thought process anyway. So we're just doing stuff here and kind of poking around and thinking things through. So for example, I already have decided that a long time ago, I decided that your value to the society is sort of ranked by the same thing as sort of a martial arts belt. And the reason is because martial arts is a great example of a meritocracy, which is based solely on how good you are, right? It doesn't matter if you're a black belt. If you're the son of a black belt, then the son of the black belt still starts as a white belt, right? So there's nothing you can do about it. You have to be good on your own merits. You can't inherit merits from somebody else. So that's part of the interesting thing about a meritocracy. So I went ahead and just continued on with that logic thought and made belts of the same color, and then sort of did a translation as to how many kina equals how many hours you work. So if you wanted to get, 5 kina or whatever, that would be for the average person. If you're unskilled, a white belt, you're a white belt effectively. It would take you 5 hours to get 1 kina. If you're a black belt, it takes you 1 hour to get 1 kina. So it takes 5 times as long for an unexperienced person as it does with an experienced person. So just something to kind of ponder and think about. I've been kind of pondering these things. So yeah. And that's why BC Kamen, which is our buddy Brent, is kind of going, no, wait a minute. Shouldn't you be working? Because that's his job. To ask me if I should be working right now. So anyway. And that's what I'm kind of pondering at this point. Got about 7 minutes left in the show. And I'm kind of thinking, I haven't figured out how to do the external point of the economy, though. Like, I get possessions and land ownership, but then the next questions come into the larger parts of imports, exports, right? I mean, like, what do you do then? How do you operate that? How are those manipulated? Yeah, I mean, already this has changed one line in in book 3, because we made, when James and I were talking about this, we talked about the replimats, right? Because part of the reason you can have a culture like this is because you're post scarcity, right? And the Springs book is going to be me typing a lot. What's left in the Springs book is me typing in a whole bunch of things. So I'm not doing the Springs book, not necessarily because I don't want to, but because it's really me bringing up a Word document and typing a lot and then copying what I type into the book. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, definitely something to kind of ponder though is about. So I don't know if you were here, Brent, when we talked about replimats and the limitations on replimats. But the more complicated the item, the more that the replimat will that the replimat or the replicated item will degrade. So if you were to try to make a cell phone on your replimat, it would last like 5 or 6 hours. It's long enough to do pretty much a throwaway thing, but it's not going to last very long. Same thing for weapons. Weapons would only last for, a few hours at best. So because of that, there's now going to need to be a need for manufacturing, which is cool. Anyway, being kind of spacey though on this one today because I decided to start out the day slow. Hey, Michael, how are you doing? It asks all kinds of other questions like, what are the most valuable resources? How does the chain of production work? We're having a great day. It's another day with drawing. Except that we're not drawing. But that's all right. That's all right. Hey, airplane pilot lover. You like the pilots or the airplanes too? These are always the important questions. I ask the important questions. Well, about the same actually. We're kind of sitting here, just kind of discussing bits and pieces of culture, I guess. What's up with you guys? Where are you guys coming in from? You want to become a pilot? Nice. Do you want to get just single, or did you want to go up to like multi-engine and commercial? Do you want to go to helicopter? Rotor? Just stay at fixed wing? Commercial. Sweet. Respect. Right? Yep, planes are better than helicopters. I can sort of agree with that. Okay. I'm actually going to spin up. I'm going to take forever for this thing to update, but I might as well do it now and get it running. Oh, good. Looks like we're good. What about Ospreys, the V-22? I like the V-22. Definitely one of my favorites. We're at 11 o'clock, guys. So we're at the end of this run, but I'll be back on tomorrow. No, I won't. I'm working tomorrow and Friday, so there will be no day show tomorrow and Friday because the F-35, yeah. I thought that was the F-22. F-22 is the Raptor, I think. The F-35 is the Lightning too, I think. Pretty sure. Not 100% though. So they're both planes. There was a need for it. Oh, I'm standing up. Yeah, no day show. There will be, the Joint Strike Fighter, which is the Lightning II, which I find particularly funny because they wanted to make it be the Lightning, but Anyway, okay, guys. That's the end of this show for today. I know that some of you guys just joined me just in time for me to cut the show, but I've got to actually go do a photo shoot. That's why I'm wearing a nice shirt. I have to go to a photo shoot, and that means taking all of my equipment and moving it and getting it into the car so I can be at the photo shoot by 1 o'clock. So I got to move and get out of here. It was good seeing all of you guys, and I'm glad you guys were all here today. I hope to see you. I'll be here tonight on stream, and I'll be here tomorrow night on stream. But again, I work through the weekend. So if you guys want to see when we're up, like and subscribe, and then you'll see when the streams start and when they end. And I'll talk to you guys all later. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars, guys. Bye-bye.